so I thought I would try to do a introductory video here, and the problem with that is that I have a really hard time trying to describe myself, so I'm going to just kind of do a video on my beliefs and how I kind of came to them. And the easiest way to say it is that I was born, I'm 7th generation farm family. I was born to a very large, close-knit farm family that lives all in the same general area. We live in what we often refer to as the Valley. We'll use our last names in it too, but anyway, we often live in what's called the Valley, and that's what I usually refer to it as. We were pretty poor when I was growing up. We're pretty well to do now, but that's because we had an entire generation that went to college, and every generation since. Mine was the first generation to go to college, and our entire generation has been going to college ever since, or every generation since then has been going to college, and that's really helped out in raising our income level. But I was raised pretty poor. A lot of people ask me how poor, and I try to give them different examples. First of all, I had electricity for literally 1 year and 4 months in my first 17.5 years of life. We just didn't have electricity. We couldn't afford it. And another thing is, I went to a one-room schoolhouse, and this always shocks people when I say this. We walked to school, not that part, but the next part. And when we walked to school, we always carried our rifles with us. I always had a .22 rifle with me. And the reason for this is we raised cattle and we raised pigs and things like that, but that meat was sold at the market. And if you were on your way home from school when it was warmer and cold, when it was the colder months, you could go on the way to school, and if you saw a squirrel or a rabbit or a woodchuck or something on that order, you shot it because that was your meat for the pot. And we had, especially during the winter months, we had what many people today refer to as stone soup pots. Basically, we had a pot that sat on the back of the old kitchen, wood kitchen stove, wood burning kitchen stove, and just everything went into it. So, you know, the meat that might be in the pot now might be woodchuck, it might be squirrel, it might be rabbit, it might be pigeon, you know, whatever, something. There was always some conglomerate of meat, but whatever meat had just been brought in. And I mean, this is, a lot of people will get kind of grossed out by this and things like that, and like, oh, you took guns to school. Yeah, because guns didn't become a dangerous weapon until, I always get on both sides. Guns don't kill people, people kill people, but the people who made guns be looked at as such bad things are usually the idiots that are out there going, oh, look at my gun, it's so important to me. For those of us that were raised with guns, rifles, things like that, they really have very little meaning. They're tools. They're as important as our rakes are, as our vehicles are, but they're not any more important or less important. They just are a tool. The new people that are just getting into guns or have only been with them for a little while seem to have more of an excitement with them than most people do, or than, you know, the old-timers did. But anyway, that's another story. So we were really poor. My father was what's called a swamp rat. That's what we call them. I've heard them many other names. In fact, it wasn't until I came online that I learned that some people call them river rats. And my father lived kind of a gypsy-style lifestyle. They lived in their boats, and they went up and down the Mississippi River and its different waterways. So basically 2/3 of the country is drained by, or 2/3 of the North American continent actually is drained by the Mississippi River, and these people lived off of all these different waterways. And sometimes there are actually still to this day factories set up for swamp rats, and I'll make a video about that sometime. Maybe I'll take you out and show you some of those. But most of their money would come from fishing, from clamming, from hunting, from leading guided hunts. But then there were also factories that they could stop in and work for 2 months, and then that was it. Then they just disappeared back out into the waterways again. And my father was very much in tune with the natural world, and he gave that to his 5 children. And even my one sister, who is a lawyer in Chicago, still is probably more in tune to the wild world than probably most of her compatriots there in Chicago. My mother, best thing with my mother to describe, she was a farm child. She was the 6th generation, raised in this valley, lived very similar to what her mother and her mother and her mother had lived. But my mother was religion made my mother very nervous, and we children were raised with no religion. I always laugh and say we were non-practicing atheists, but atheism would have made my mother very uncomfortable too. So I was never raised with any religion. I was never baptized. Probably could count the times I had been in church on one hand before I went away to college, because we just didn't go. It made my mother phenomenally uncomfortable, and you still don't to this day talk about religion to my mother, or any religious concepts like heaven or hell or anything like that. I don't know why, she just always has. So when I began to look into spirituality, I was literally a blank slate when it came to it. So a lot of the things that most people who came to paganism, they either came to it from another religion, or they came to it from parents who came from another religion. We are a couple generations into paganism now, so they could have even come from grandparents that came to it from another religion. So a lot of religious laws that were with the original religion came down to them. And I always show the pagan like the law of returns, which is a reward punishment system, is based on Christianity's heaven and hell. There is no natural reward punishment system in the universe. It is a man-made concept. So people who had lived with these constraints of a man-made reward punishment system in their Christian religion, when they came to paganism, they created another reward punishment system that they needed to live by. It was their way of making constraints. But I came from none of this. My belief is people are good because they're good. People are bad because they're bad. And no reward punishment system is going to change that. If you're a good person, you are going to be a good person. You're going to act as a good person. You're going to do the good things. You're not going to steal. You're not going to rape. You're not going to kill, because the thought of doing that is repulsive. Not because you're afraid of going to heaven or it's going to come back to you times 3. You're going to help people because that makes you feel good. You receive a reward of just simply feeling good because you helped people. If you want to be bad, though, you can justify it within any religion. I hurt this person because they were a bad person. I stole this because this person has too much, and I'm actually doing them a favor by taking it from them, because now they are learning how to live without it. You can justify any bad act to any religious law. So for me, basically, as I always say, you can hate in the name of God just as much as you can love in it. So I don't follow a lot of the same religious laws that many of the modern pagans do. I follow nature's laws. And I try to be a good person because, again, that makes me feel good. When I act good, when I help people, I come away from that feeling like, yay! I work with a community center and things like that. So my religion is based solely on my connection to the natural world. And I do feel, now, natural is to me things that do not step out of the natural rhythm of things. So a lot of people say, well, men and humans are natural. Well, we are, but often we step out of the natural rhythm of the world, of the universe. We use more than we give back, and then we get upset that what we're using is depleted. We do things that just are not within the natural rhythm of things. There is always an ebb and flow in life, and human beings don't want that ebb. They want things to keep going up, 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 up. And then when things start going down, we all throw up our hands and scream, and it's not fair, it's not fair. Well, it's natural. So fair or not, nature was never meant to be fair. It was meant to be what it is. Let's see. Other than that, I live on a 652-acre farm right along the Wisconsin River. I have the natural disasters that we work with here are mainly tornadoes, flooding, and fire. Flooding being our big one. Let's see, I live surrounded, our valley is surrounded 3 sides by an Amish community, and so I know how to drive a horse and buggy just as easily as I know how to drive a car. I actually train horses. I train anywhere from 5 to 10, sometimes even 15 horses a year. It's a way of making a little extra money. I am a forensic meteorologist. That's where my big money comes from. That's where my health insurance and my main money comes from. I am definitely not poor anymore. I have more money than a human being should have. I live off-grid. Most of my power comes from solar and wind. I do also have an LP generator, and I heat. I mean, this is the fireplace, obviously, just for ambiance, but I heat with wood. I have the ability to cook with wood.